Hughes.
Hi, I'm Laura Hughes, and it's a privilege to be your Race of Life Face of Norwich. Before you all begin running, I'm here to tell you a little bit about my story and why I'm up here today speaking to you all. It all began back in the beginning of January last year when I was on holiday with my boyfriend Brad for 5 weeks travelling around Australia. When 2 weeks into the holiday, while showering one morning, I came across a small, hard lump in my left breast. Once out of the shower, I asked Brad to have a feel to make sure I wasn't being silly. He too could feel the lump, but due to my age of only 25, we both presumed it was a hormonal lump and would just go away. But over the next 2 weeks, the lump wouldn't leave my mind, and every morning in the shower, it was still there. I could feel it getting larger and harder as time went on, so I emailed my doctors and got an appointment organised when I returned back in the UK. I had convinced myself that it must be a cyst, as I knew no one of my age that had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and didn't even think that it was possible. So along I went to the doctors, completely sure that I was going to be fine. After a good check, my doctor also thought it was likely to be a cyst, due to my age, but luckily decided to refer me on to the North Norwich Hospital just to make sure. It took 2 weeks to get an appointment, which was a very long wait. As I'd been off for a month of my hairdressing job, I threw myself back into work and concentrated on catching up with friends and family after I'd returned from Australia. The day of my appointment came around fast, and at this point I was completely unaware it was the first of many hospital trips. After a few hours of being prodded and poked, and having had ultrasounds, 2 mammograms and a biopsy, I was finally allowed home. I was not prepared with how invasive the biopsy was, and spent the rest of the week feeling very sore and very bruised. I chose to tell no one of my lump, as I felt worrying everyone with what was likely to be nothing was a waste of time. After all, I was still convinced that I was far too young for it to be anything serious. The following week, on the 24th of February 2014, a date which will now forever be etched into my memory, I was back at hospital with Brad to get my results. We were taken through by a nurse to a small, clinical-looking room and sat to wait for a few minutes until my consultant arrived. She sat down opposite with a handful of notes, looked at me, and then said those devastating words, "I'm sorry, Laura, it's breast cancer." From that moment, my whole world fell apart and my life was changed forever. I was terrified and completely overwhelmed, and time just seemed to stand still for hours. My consultant explained to me that although they knew the lump was cancerous, they still as yet did not know how bad it was or if it had spread. This I then required further tests and another biopsy. The hardest part after hearing all those words yourself is then explaining it and telling all your friends and family, particularly as I yet didn't know how bad it was myself. Everyone rallied round, and within days my house looked like a florist with all the deliveries that I received. Over the next few weeks I endured many hospital trips for more tests, scans and a lot of needles. By the second week in March, I knew that I had an aggressive type of breast cancer, and the lump had tripled in size from 15 millimetres to over 55 millimetres and had spread to my lymph nodes. This was classed as a stage 3 and I was devastated. On the 18th of March, I went in for my first chemotherapy session. I was the youngest on the ward by a long way and extremely nervous with what to expect, but was quickly put at ease by the wonderful nurses of the Wayborn unit. My first session seemed to go on for hours, and once they'd finished pumping me full of poison, I was handed a large bag of various steroids and anti-sickness tablets to take in the weeks in between my chemo. It was all very daunting, and over the next few hours, all I could do was sit and wait for the side effects to kick in. And soon enough, I was hanging over the toilet bowl, being very ill. Within 2 weeks, the next main side effects began to kick in, and my hair began to fall out in clumps. I had already cut my hair in preparation, but the first day I ended up with my hair in my hands, I felt physically sick. Being a hairdresser, this is one of the worst parts for me, but I took control and shaved it off a few days later in the salon. My colleague was more nervous than I was, and we both ended up in tears throughout the evening. But once it was done, this was a massive weight off my shoulders. I'm sure the bottle of Prosecco that I had drunk beforehand helped calm my nerves. The wave of compliments came in from all my friends about my new do, and I realised that I'd made the right decision, and I actually quite liked the bored look. My chemotherapy went on for 19 weeks, and by the halfway point, it was making me very ill and life very difficult. I was exhausted and felt drained the whole time, so I spent the majority of the evenings and days lying in sofa or on the bed. Finally, I had my last chemotherapy session on the 7th of July. It was an amazing feeling to be finished, but my next task was soon to come. On the 1st of August, I had my very first operation of a mastectomy to my left breast and a full lymph node clearance. I was extremely nervous about this bit, but in a funny way, after living with a lump for over 5 months, I was well and truly ready for them to take away my boob. The operation went well, and I recovered fairly quickly, but getting used to a prosthesis was very difficult. 2 months after my operation, I went through 15 sessions of radiotherapy, and now I'm on hormonal tablets for at least the next 5 years. I have also undergone, so far, 17 injections of Herceptin since May of last year, where I have one every 3 weeks. But I'm particularly excited as I'm due for my 18th and final one this week, which means by Wednesday evening I will be finished all my active treatment. I still have a long way to go with other things like reconstruction, but I'm happy that the first part of my journey is almost finished and I can put this year behind me. So now you all know about me and my diagnosis, I'd like to tell you why I'm here today. Some of the drugs that I've been lucky enough to have had available for me have been helped and found by the Cancer Research UK, which means if it wasn't for you all here today, helping raise lots of money, people like me may not be up here telling our stories. I, like many of you, have also lost families, members and friends to cancer. However, I can see that today there are far more treatments available out there and many new types of drugs being found all the time, enabling us not only to survive cancer, survive the first few years after cancer, but to live a long and happy life after cancer. I believe survival rates can also be helped by us also knowing our own bodies a bit better and knowing what is normal for us. If you find something that is not normal for you, this is when you need to go and see your doctor and push for checks, even if you think you might be too young. Catching a diagnosis early enough means it's far easier for it to be treated and potentially cured. If you're also told that you are too young, please push for a second opinion, because in my case, this could have made a difference between my stage 3 diagnosis and a terminal stage 4 diagnosis. I'm also now the very first Boobette volunteer in East Anglia for Copperfield, where my aim is to help spread the message to all women of all ages about breast cancer. And as I'm up here today speaking to all you lovely women, I'd like to spread a bit of boob love with you all. I want to ask that you all take at least 5 minutes later today to check your breasts. And if you can do, tweet me to let me know you've done this with a hashtag #FillYourBoobs, or fill those boobs, sorry. Please share the love and get all your female friends checking too. I hope you all have fun today in this lovely sunshine, and before I finish, I'd like to thank Cancer Research UK and all the Heart team for inviting me up here today to share my story. All your donations are going to a great cause, so raise lots of money, good luck and have fun. Thank you.
Well, you know what, Laura, not only are you brave, and you are incredibly brave, but you've just literally stood in front of these guys, so give her a big cheer and round of applause. I am not going to put you on the spot at all, but I'm just going to say one thing which I know is going to be very important, and we've hit on it there as well. Guys, it is a fact that 1 in 3 people, and that is 1 in 3 people of you guys, will not return sponsorship money for one reason or another. Just tell everybody how important it is that they do that.
It's really important. I think every pound and penny helps towards Cancer Research UK, and if you can get it in quick enough, then obviously the more research can be found sooner and more people like myself will be standing here telling our stories.
Big round of applause, Laura. Thank you for sharing your story with us and your journey as well. It's amazing. You've heard Laura's story, and you all have your own stories. So let's take a moment to reflect on our own reasons for being here today.